So hello again to anyone out there tuning in. This is our 2007 Hyundai Elantra again. Going at it, we are going to try to get this old girl back into the pit. And I don't think we're gonna have to try too hard. She runs fine. She drives forward and reverse and fine. The only hiccup is this guy. So my cat's out here, help me, Leia. That is a new from a salvage yard, a shifting cable. That is going to replace our busted shifting cable. You can see it broke right there where it mounts or is bolted to the transmission shifter. Now, not too complex. Anyone that has done these, the problem is just getting to it. So showing there, you can see it runs back to the firewall and then goes right there. There's kind of like a steel plate, I guess, to help protect it, and then it runs back in to here and attaches to your shifter. I changed one, what was it, 2 years ago in a PT Cruiser, and it wasn't too absurd. The only thing I messed up, I broke, it was a plastic piece that it was bolted into, and I torqued just a little too hard and broke that, so I had to actually, it was kind of fortunate, I had a shifter off of another PT Cruiser. So the most kind of annoying, frustrating thing, and I'm probably going to do this, I have my car, again, all seatbelt and taped up. This one isn't as much as the other ones because it's the driver's door, you're not allowed to hit it. I usually don't put as much duct tape or any of that on there, but we're gonna break that off so we can get this door open, even though she's bent up, so I can kind of more easily get into the car, and just got to get that plastic off. Might have to unbolt the seat again so I can easily get to that. There should just be 2 bolts on this side of the firewall, I do believe. They'll go through there. So that's the biggest hiccup. But other than that, you can see she is certainly battered and bruised, but other than a slight bend to the front wheel, the tie rod's fine, the CV shafts are fine, everything is fine. A little bit of, you can see here, if I'm standing pretty much straight, you can see how she's got a little bit of a bend back. The rebar didn't bend. That's a solid rebar, but the frame rail here just bent out a little bit. But again, that was because I was stuck in reverse and I was just taking hits from everywhere. Whenever I'm driving forward and backwards, it's up to me to calculate those front end hits and protect the wheels, which we're not worried about. That's part of driving and the fun of it. This wheel here, we're just gonna take that off, jack her up, take off that burn up, I say, because I was spinning on that rim at the end as she went flat. I was taking hits as I was stuck against the wall in her run. So we'll put a new tire on there. We'll beat up and in the fender as much as we can so it's not close to the tire. Same thing over here. Inside, this core support, again with the frame rail being bent back at the very end, I don't know if the radiator has a hole in it, but it did leak out. And you can see it's not in its original kind of standard position. That side pretty much is. This side's kind of falling out. So we'll loop the lines from the radiator hose, which that's a nice long one already. You might not have to use any other different one other than that. That'd be nice. So we'll loop that, just have it cycle anyways. But other than that, up front, everything is good to go. Just kind of bend back some metal a little bit. Around here, again, nothing over here. In the back, we are going to just get the jack under here, try to press this a little bit, the top down, bottom up together. Otherwise, that wheel's good. A little bent in from taking hits, but perfectly fine. This one over here, same thing. We'll try to compress that trunk a little bit more, make it tougher, even more solid than whenever it was a fresh run. This wheel here, the rear, I don't know exactly what it's called, but that rear support bar there is slightly bent. So it kind of got hit a couple times and pinched in. So I'm going to try to hit a sledgehammer rather to it, a sludge like in snow, a sledgehammer to it to straighten that out a little bit, and then I might wrap a ratchet strap around the front of the wheel and kind of bend that back. So other than that, over here, just kind of beat down the sheet metal there. The doors here took a lot of damage, but other than that, you can see a ton of space, nothing to do there. It rained before I could get the car off the trailer and into the pole barn, so unfortunately there's rain all through. I just drew a hole there and a couple spots. I'll drill one in the trunk to get that water out. But yeah, otherwise, again, like this here, like, oh man, that looks like a mess. But you look inside and like, no man, it doesn't look pretty, but that's perfectly fine. So she is structurally still sound. She runs good. I would say she is a very tough derby car. So we are going to look to get her back in the pit. That shifting cable is kind of the only thing that's going to be a little bit of a headache, I think. But once we get that on, straighten her out, and a week from yesterday, throw in her pit again. So just to show, here is the right front wheel, just kind of bent in with the channel lock and then kind of beat up with the sledge a little bit to try to make it not only a smooth surface, but a little bit more rounded away from the wheel. Get that front there a little bit higher. Rolled in the front there a little bit too, but it's so flimsy. But underneath here, I knew one of the wheels was a little bit bent. I thought it was this one. It took some shots, especially at the end when I was stuck. So you can see the tie rod's got a little bend to it, which certainly, you know, is gonna make it weaker. So this is gonna be the weaker of the wheels, but again, the front wheels you got to keep clean. Hopefully I'll have all gears this time, but I'm gonna throw on the tire we took off the back as I put the spares there, which it's pretty similar, decent, you know, if you will, stock all-weather tire, DOT approved, which the stock classes need. So gonna bend just a little bit more up that corner, get the spare tire on here, and then do the same thing to the tire I replaced with a spare tire in the back on here, and then we'll do the same to the other side. So looking at the driver's side front wheel, I just wanted to show, you can see that spray foam that we sprayed inside the top of the fender after I took the piece of plastic was there and moved the fuse box. Kind of made a nice, again, you can see there's a wire running down here, I believe to the brakes, but I'm not 100% sure, but there's wires. You can see right above there is the plug for, again, those are key wires running to my fuse box, but you can see how that made a nice foam here, as look at all the hits it took there, and that foam held. So again, it's cheap, it's simple, absolutely use it. But in here, looking at this tie rod, it is, I thought the passenger side was bent a little. It must be the wheel itself that was bent a little on either this side or the other, but I can't really tell just looking at it on its own. But there is a slight kind of, one wheel's facing straight, the other wheel's facing slightly in, so I'm not sure which one is slightly bent, but nothing to do here. I just kind of took the plastic junk out so it didn't drag in the wheel, but I mean, that stuff would have got ripped out anyways, and just beat lightly around the top here to try to make it, again, as smooth of a circle surface, if you will, so it's not rubbing the tire. But otherwise, that's it. And the only thing wrong with this tire, you can see, again, they took a lot of hits. He got pressed a little there, little nick there, but again, fill the tires completely full of air. We're gonna throw her back on here, and the front two wheels are good to go. Just a quick little look. While yes, a sledgehammer works, it is a lot of physical effort and maybe not as efficient as using just a heavy duty or any ratchet strap, but these are the car ratchet straps I use. You can see how I didn't think I'd be able to get that kind of back frame rail part there. I'm not sure exactly what the terminology is, but he's tough and kind of bent down and in a little, which is not a big deal. It's actually nice that it's bent down and in because it's away from the wheel, and that's going to kind of compress everything together. But I just put the ratchet strap, hooked it inside, hooked it back here, pulling it tight. That trunk was up like this, and you can now see how it is. So on the bottom here, I'm going to try to get that up under a little bit. Might try the ratchet strap, first. Might just go straight to hitting with the big sledgehammer. And then over here, I mean, it's pretty much tight, so we're gonna leave it like that. So that's how we're going about the back of this old girl, trying to beat her together, which will make her even tougher than she was brand new, because she's all beat together. So just one final quick look at the first process, or part of the process that is, beating this old girl back. Kind of, again, beat up and in the rear end here to try to, again, get it as tight as it can be and as tough as it can be. And this back wheel, again, that seems to be, while there's a couple things in here a little bent, that guy was the main one. So I took the wheel off, which you can see has a couple battle scars and pinches. But again, you can hear the rain pouring on this roof. Completely full with air, and they just don't seem to go flat. But just took the sledge and hit that guy right there, straightened it out probably from about that to about this, and it is pretty much straight. So we're gonna put the back wheel on, and she's pretty much beat back to as straight as she can be with a fresh set of wheels. So upon further review, we've got a little more work up front here than I originally thought. So it was dark and I didn't really look at it, and I knew the frame rail was bent over here, but I didn't really look super closely at this left side. I knew it was pulled out a little bit. Well, I just bent this up. It's just like plastic, part of that core that's running across the top. Unbolt that, that's nothing, but this rebar, which seems quite solid, and we're gonna keep, it's mounted, or it was bolted onto the front of the frame rail here. You can see the bolts there through this kind of small plate. And whenever I got stuck against the wall, and I was getting slammed in this wheel, which had been cut down from being hit so much. The one guy, I went back and watched the film, made sense. He got me real far up front, so not only, I'm sure why that helped kind of bend the frame on top of being hit over there, but also it tore this up. So not really sure how we're gonna do this. Certainly gonna take off this kind of just excess junk plastic. The radiator again is gonna come out, we're gonna loop it, but I'm not totally sure. I don't wanna take this off, even though it's just kind of like it's not really heavy duty at all, but it's kind of holding this fender as well as that fender, and, you know, just a little bit more support across there. So I'm not sure. I mean, can bend this guy back straight, but it's now kind of pressed that way, so it's not going to line up perfectly. But if I can get it to line back up with the inside bolts and rebolt it, and then just take maybe some 9-wire or something, even if it's just a seatbelt, and wrap around kind of that apparatus to just kind of keep it there. I mean, if it's getting slammed and tore up, you know, it's going to come off, but just kind of keep it there and on the frame rail, so if I hit some with the front or I get hit with the front, it'll be stable. So I think that's going to be likely our route, but we'll see here. But yeah, a little bit more work, but we're still hopeful. And this wheel, you can see how the steering wheel is straight in essence, so this was slightly outside. The steering was a little bit past straight, but this one got pressed in a little bit. Again, overall pretty solid, especially as many hits as it took. So we'll see what happens here. And a look at our progress. You can see we've got the radiator up and out. We've got her sitting out in the yard, and look at all that space. And again, a Hyundai Elantra, I will say, you know, a lot of guys right off the bat loop their radiator lines, which is what I'll do now. So here was the hose I took off that was running from the radiator. I'm gonna unhook this guy, plug him in down there, because this kind of curvature, and then I'll cut it about right here, so there shouldn't be any kink at all. It'll come in, go, I'll have this pointing down a little, and then I'll have it running right back in. Have some, probably some antifreeze, maybe a little bit of the fabric softener. Just have it cycling, try to keep cool, and just take it easy on the throttle as long as possible, doing your thing out there. So that's that. And you can see all the space. So my plan is I'm gonna remove this. I got this off here. I was thinking about just cutting it there and leaving the rest of the top there, which I might. I think I might, because the hood sits on that, and also over here there's nothing wrong. So I think I'm gonna cut out this middle guy here. So probably right there, I'm gonna cut it with my not on the rebar, but down there. Take that center piece out. This whole junk piece will come out, and then I'm gonna beat back straight the end of the frame rail here, beat this straight, and then I should be able to bolt, even if I have to drill a new hole, onto there, so at least it's sitting there straight, and I'll still have the top of that. So that's the plan. Final prep here before we get to the shifting cable, and then that's it. And there's our finished product. So we were able to bend back enough to get the one bolt back in to kind of its original spot. You can see that this should be all the way over here, and this should be where that's going, but there was a smaller slot there for that guy there where we were able to go through. And then I took a 3/8 bolt nut and kind of a bigger washer, and was able to get the top to mount. So is it directly lined up with the frame rail? No. And if I back up, you can see, I mean, that right wheel is already, the passenger side, a little bit beat up. You can see we got a little bit more protection on this side with that frame rail being bent. But this side a little more exposed, but that's again where the driver's skill got to come in. So, and then the only other thing here, again, this guy cut about right here, so that we'll just loop right back, and you can see the hose isn't really going to kink at all, because that's kind of a natural bend to this hose. And if I put the hood down, she looks a little open up front, but that rebar is tough. And again, that's more so just for protection or end of the run. Back's got nothing left. We're just looking to hit anything we can with the front end. So we're excited about it. There's the pretty much the bulk of the core support. The top we decided to take off because it was just with nothing on the bottom supporting it. It was just kind of dead weight and just clutter there that if it gets hit could get punched into something. So nicked the top of that and bottom as well. So it doesn't, with that core support not being there, it's not needed anymore. So it's not in the way. So that's her. I think it's as good as we can make it. So with the idea of looping the water or your antifreeze, whatever you're using, in your derby car here, I wanted to show this. So right here, I just popped this little kind of like electronic wire holding plastic case. Right under there is the thermostat. So there's a bolt up here and there's a bolt on the other side. You can see there in the corner that once I do that, that should pop right out, and then the thermostat is in there. Now with the hose line being looped, I of course I don't want that thing opening and closing because it doesn't have a radiator, so I want it to constantly cycle through the motor. I'll fill it up as much as I can, and she should be good to go. So what I do, I've done this before. This is the one off my PT Cruiser when I did it. The thermostat has this part here that kind of opens and closes it when it's getting hot to cycle out of the motor through the radiator. I just cut that off kind of carefully, and you can see how it's just kind of sitting in there like this, so the water or antifreeze or whatever is just constantly circulating. So I'm going to unbolt that now and do that, so that way once we get our hose on there, again, it's just constantly cycling through the motor. And this one is not too bad a place. So we're going to do that, and then should be good to go. And just to show if you're not familiar, so there is, first, here's the plug for the, there we go, for the coolant. The coolant sensor, just unplug that. And again, that's what a lot of people say. You leave that in there, get a dummy plug, plug it in here. Just, AutoZone, sometimes they're as cheap as 17, 18 bucks. Sometimes they're as expensive as 40 or so. It just kind of depends on the car. But plug in a dummy one and then zip tie it somewhere so that your computer, especially stock computer like mine, is not ever going to get the signal that, oh, it's too hot, shut it down. But again, if you do that, then you're sometimes kind of messing with the thermostat opening and closing. So it just kind of depends what you want. But some people do that. But you can see there it is. So I'll carefully just kind of pop it out. And here is the outside of it. And do be careful with these. I cracked one of these. They're just like, I don't know, they're not like a super heavy duty, I guess, type of metal, but I cracked one. You can see this one had a little gasket on the bolt too as I took it off. So just kind of, if you do this, be careful as you're doing it, especially these older car motors. Get my light out of the way. They're pretty old and rusty, but this one pretty painless. We'll just carefully take a screwdriver and pop that guy out and look to gut them and put them right back in there. It also has a gasket you don't want to lose. And there you go. So just a final look. Again, what I'll do, this was in like this, just carefully took a screwdriver, popped it out. Didn't have a gasket around this one. All the other ones I've had have done that. So again, I'll just carefully take my saw, sitting over there on my old rim, and just nick across this guy here. Same thing here, and then the guts just kind of fall out, and all that's left is this little, can't get its focus there, this little kind of ring, which will be open just like my other one I had, and it'll just continue to flow through. So we'll fill her back up, have the tube and everything on it, or the hose that is, and she'll just keep looping through until hopefully we're still running at the end. So that's the mindset. So yeah, pretty simple. Sometimes these buggers are hard to get at. This one was pretty easy, especially once I took out, all the plastic was in here for the air box and the battery and all that other stuff, not to mention the front being so open. So we'll cut it out, put it back in, and then just cut our hose. She's ready to go. And here it is all back together. So we got our thermostat back in there and that back on there. And do be careful, don't over torque those. You will split that piece. Again, it's not super heavy duty, and I did that the last time I did this. Don't over tighten them. Just get them kind of tight, kind of like a oil filter is my suggestion, and that's good enough unless you turn on the motor and it's seeping out everywhere. Then you probably need to tighten a little more, but don't over torque it. Again, right there is our plug. Because I'm looping, and you can see here going out and back in with this one, they're so close together. The hose, which is nicely looped around here, it's not pinched or anything. Again, that piece of hose that was up top here in the radiator I took off. I am going to buy, even though I think it's like 38 bucks for this one, which kind of sucks, the plug, so I can unplug that and just have it zip tied outside the motor here, because she's gonna get hot. Even if I have antifreeze in there and it's taking heat, it's just going to get hot. 15, 20 minute derby, don't want to get taken out because the computer's got the message that the motor's too hot. So back together, good to go. Just need to get a new plug next time we go to AutoZone. So the last thing, on to the shifter. So to show our carnage in here, we have ripped apart. Just took the saw and sawed a little bit down there so then I could bust the plastic after I unbolted the ones up here and they popped out, just to get the front part of the center console there out. So there is the cable, kind of pops in, clicks on the side there, clicks in right there, and then it runs underneath, and see if I can get it on the camera, right on the other side of those different colored lines. There you go. You can see the bolt there. That is the one bolt. The other one's on the other side. That is what we got to get to unbolt. And then I hope she'll just kind of slide out. So that's the task. Let's see if we can get this old cable out and the new guy in. And there you have it. We got her out. Here is the busted one. You can see it broke right where it bolts in, and that's the new cable above it. Yes, it was not a pleasant experience to get out. Now, if you're someone that stumbles on this video in or derby, so my process, I unbolted it right here, which is pretty simple. My piece was busted, but I unbolted anyways. Right here, I just kind of took a screwdriver. It should just be like tightly clipped in there. I had to take a screwdriver and kind of chip around down to break it loose so I could pop it up. Then I came inside, and again, if you're doing this in a derby car, you don't care if you're tearing up all of your console, just don't cut any wires. So I just got that out. There were the two bolts again, all the way up the wires, got those out, one on each side. And then I just carefully pulled it out. Had to use a screwdriver to kind of pry the metal piece there off a little bit, but then just carefully, and again, right here, it just pops out. And do be careful, I've broken that off before on my PT Cruiser I did. Just pops up and out there, and then you just slide the cable back out. It'd be a lot easier if you had two people, one person kind of gently pushing it through up here and through that small slot as it's coming out. I, doing it myself, had to go back and forth, but eventually got it to where she slid all the way up and out. So now, hopefully an easier process to reverse, slide her through, and then bolt her in. And hopefully we've got gears working like they should. So here we have it, our 2007 Hyundai Elantra, ready to get back into the pit. She has been patched together, a couple things ripped out, as you can tell from the front end. A lot more space up here. We were able to reconnect, again, that front rebar, which seems pretty tough. It's a little bit off the frame rail, but you know, we think it's going to still be all right. And that's more going to be for defense, protecting ourselves, or a timely hit up front. But still got some of our stickers from our gamer time, paint idea design that my son and I had, some on the side as well. You can see she has gone through a lot, but we still think she has a lot of life left. So again, last time, the shifter cable, unfortunate how it broke right up front. Put the hood back up here, one last look underneath. Again, unfortunate, it broke right at the tip where it bolts in, and I was sitting there stuck in reverse. Shifter shifts perfectly fine, got the new shifter cable in, and she is good to go. Even goes into park now. Didn't do that with the old shifter. You can see the radiator, the core support, everything here was so beat up, and it was bent over. I took a couple shots toward the end there in that derby when I was stuck against the wall, again in reverse and a dead car. This wheel got turned a little in, but it still seems solid, nothing kind of hanging on by the end. I mean, it's certainly bent and going to be weaker, but again, this car took a beating and she still rips. Motor's untouched, tranny's fine. Again, the loop lines are there. Just kind of secure a little bit of these wires. Otherwise, everything is good. You can see the carnage from, again, it's a little bit of a tighter pit at Clarendon County where I ran it, and 21 cars are in there. But just beat a little bit up around the back here where the spare tire, again, on that side. See, I took a little bit more hits and got a couple hits stuck in reverse. Nothing too hard. The pit was pretty crowded, and only having one gear made it tough to go on any sort of run. But beat down a little bit at the top with the sledgehammer and tried to press up a little bit, but it's in essence that like frame rail part of the trunk, and it's, I mean, it is what it is. You know, I could maybe cut it and then press it up a little bit. I might still do that, to be honest, but I think I'll just leave it like that. Over here, you can see this spare tire has quite a bit of damage, but again, just kind of beat in that bar in the back and beat up around the fender a little bit. So she's good to go. She's got a lot of holes in her, but we still think she's got a lot of life left. So we are going to send her to the Derby. So again, hopefully she's got a good run in her. The driver's going to have to earn his keep this time. He's got all the gears necessary, so no excuses. So our final look at our 2007 Hyundai Elantra Run 2 about to commence.